In the brutal podcast system, any jackass with a microphone and internet connection can pose as an expert on any topic under the sun. Fortunately, however, there exists a humble duo of said jackasses who at least aspire to minimize the effects of the current egregious level of aforementioned fake-ass horseshit and those who perpetrate it. This duo attempts this very noble task by allowing you, the listener, to have total unimpeded access to the real minutiae of their pathetic everyday lives. This two-member task force is known deep within the podcast world as Zero Front. These are their stories.
Welcome back to another edition of Zero Front. This is the start of season 3. I know it's been a minute. Season 2 ended in August 2024. I didn't plan on taking that long a break, but I honestly didn't know what I was doing with the show. I didn't know if I was going to find another co-host, because obviously, if you know, you've been listening, Joe departed the show in the beginning of the summer of 2024. So then it just became a solo venture for me. Um, yeah, I didn't, it was one of those things. I just didn't know what the hell was going on with the show. I was in the middle of trying to find a different job. Um, you know, Finding a co-host isn't that easy. And then I didn't know if I was going to you know, just start doing interviews, like trying to find guests and interview people. Like I did reach out to some people, like, who I possibly want on the show. Like, 'cause, I know I can't get like big name celebrities. I'm like a nobody, but I was like, okay, maybe I can get like, one of the guitarists of the Killers, or something like that, who's not, not like Brandon Flowers, the lead singer. Um, you know, so I started like thinking, I was like, okay, who can I get on the show? Maybe I can get like actors who aren't that famous, who haven't been in a lot of stuff, or just who aren't being asked to be on like a lot of different shows and stuff. So it was like, I don't know, like maybe I could reach out, but I kind of got lazy and just kind of gave up on that. And then it just became a thing. Like I was like, I don't know, when I'm going to start the show again. And next thing I know, it's like a year later. It's over a year. Like now this is September of 2025. So I'm sorry for anybody who had been listening and was looking forward to new episodes. Also, part of me was thinking, I was like, oh, well, the show's just not as good without Joe. Um, People have gotten used to both of us on the show and it's a conversation. So I was like, okay, who wants to just hear me talk? So I started losing a little confidence and stuff, and it just became a thing where it's like, I don't know, like, should I just continue doing the show? But the more when time went by and the more I thought about it, I was like, I want to continue this. And I'm also trying to get a job in radio. I'm trying to get a job in broadcasting. So doing this show is kind of like a good resume for that and keeping it current and keeping it updated. Um, so it's not easy just, doing a show by yourself and just talking and about different topics and stuff. And I know, definitely have a little audience and stuff, but just sorry for keeping the audience hanging and it's been so long. But now I'm back and I plan on trying to do a show, at least one show per month. I'm going to try to keep everything going. Um, Still going to have the song lyrics, still going to have the movie reviews, still going to have some current events, some sports. Um, so yeah, I mean, now it's back. And I was actually tonight. I was trying to see if I can do like on a different platform, like Riverside or Podbean or Sprout or whatever. Um, but I went on Podbean and I tried to like. I was like, okay, I'll do it on Podbean, and then it looked like there wasn't any recording software that you could use to record um, on like they don't have their own software. It's only on iPhone and iPad, and I recorded on my MacBook. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work because I want to record on my MacBook and it's better audio with the microphone and stuff. So I was just kind of troubleshooting, and then it's one of those things. It's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I ended up just going back to just using Zoom, and using this RSS feed. So that's the way I know how to do it. I mean, I wanted to start it up again and maybe put some sound effects and do it more like a radio show, but don't want to reinvent the wheel and don't want to mess things up. So for now, I'm just going to continue using this the same ways I was doing it before. Um, so, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start off with song lyrics real quick. The lyrics are as follows. And if it takes us all night long, we're going back where we belong. That's a song called Where We Belong by a band called Thriving Ivory. It's off their 2010 album, Through Yourself and Back Again. Um, it's a really good song. They got another song called Angels on the Moon that used to be real popular. Um, I don't think the band's around anymore. They were only around for a couple of years, but this song Where We Belong is really good. The way I view it is, the lyrics are, if it takes all night long, we're going back to where we belong. So it's one of those things. It's about life. It's like, even if it takes your whole life, or however many years you're on this planet Earth in this realm, um, if it takes all night, we're going back to where we belong. So it could be one of those things where, maybe we're living in this life and then maybe there's an afterlife. Maybe there's a better place in this life. Um, no matter how long it takes, you're going to get back to where you belong. So, I start to think, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, um, it's like, if it takes all night going back to where we belong, so it could be anything. It's like, getting a better job, meeting a girl, starting a family, just getting to a place in life where you belong, where you're meant to be. So it's one of those things. Um, so I just really like that song. I highly recommend it. By Thriving Ivory. Yeah, but I'm just trying to get back in the swing of things. Like it's just one of those things, like jumping on the air and going on mic, um, and just talking is it's not easy just to keep because I usually do these episodes in one take. I do them in one shot. Um, don't really edit at all. I just kind of record for however long the episode is, and then I add the introduction. I'm still going to use the introduction. If you notice the beginning of the show, it still is the introduction with Joe talking because that introduction, I think it's really funny and it's really clever. And I still want to keep a piece of Joe in the show. So, it's just a cool introduction. So I'm definitely going to keep that. Um, but yeah, I haven't gone to as many concerts as I was going to. Since 2022, once I realized like I could go places by myself and I don't have to like be on someone else's schedule. Because a lot of times, a lot of my friends like moved, they have jobs and families, they're in other states. Um, and it's not easy to like, go to places that you want to go. Like, I want to go see this concert. Like, do you want to go? And the person's like, no, I don't really want to go. I don't like that artist as much. Um, so it's like, okay, well, I guess, am I not going to the concert? Am I, I'm just going to miss the concert. So then it was July of 2022 when I first saw Billy Joel that at Madison Square Garden that I realized, okay, I can go places by myself. I can, and some people might think it's weird. It's like going places by yourself, but is it better to go by yourself or not to go at all? So I view it as it's better to go by yourself, get out there and do something. You know what I mean? So I went to over 50 concerts, in the matter of a couple of years and crossed a lot of artists off my bucket list. Um, so it was kind of like eye opening. It's like, oh wow, I can go and do things that I want to do. It's not as easy to meet friends as an adult. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times at work, you know what I mean? They're just people you work with, and then they don't really become like great friends. Um, Joe was an exception because I met Joe at work, and then we became friends, and they started a podcast and stuff. And I'm still friends with Joe. Joe's doing well. Um, but it's one of those things where, like I said, a lot of my friends live in other states and stuff. And, um, I have my brother-in-law, but he's working, he's got kids, he's got his kids. I got my two nephews, um, and he's busy with his whole life and stuff. So, and, it's just one of those things, going places by yourself is worth it if you want to go do things, and experience new things. So, um, the last show I did was August 2024, and I saw Pearl Jam in September of 2024 in Philadelphia. That was definitely a bucket list moment. They were freaking amazing. Play a lot of good songs that I like, including Corduroy, including Dance of the Clairvoyants. Um, It was just really fun. It was a good time. And then literally, I didn't go to another concert until almost a year later. I saw Young the Giant. I saw that was my third time seeing Young the Giant. I highly recommend him. I saw him in Atlantic City, the Tropicana. I went and played some poker, saw the show. They had to stop the show briefly because someone went down. Some guy near me, some guy like passed out. That's become a common thing at concert. Like someone passes out or there's a fight and the artist stops the concert, which I think is a good thing. They stop the concert. Um, some people in the crowd might be a little annoyed. It's like, wait, I don't want, why is there stop? Why are they stopping the concert? But when you think about it, you got to make sure everyone's okay. So it makes sense. Then I saw Linkin Park for the first time. Chester killed himself in 2017. Um, and I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to see Linkin Park, but then they got this new singer, Emily Armstrong, a female singer, and she's really good. She's got good stage presence. She's got a good voice. She's obviously not Chester, but she's still good enough to fill in. They had a good set list. That was really cool. I enjoyed that concert while I was in Philadelphia. And I was on the floor. So the good part about being on the floor is if you're around annoying people or people who are talking or people who are just too drunk, you kind of like move away from them. So, that kind of happened. There was some drunk girls near me and they started like going crazy and like one grabbed onto me and they were just being really just they were just really drunk and couldn't control themselves. So I kind of moved away from that. Then there was a guy near me who kind of smelled. Um, so I kind of moved away from him. But yeah, Linkin Park was cool. That was a fun concert. And another cool thing that I did, because I'm a big fan of the Howard Stern show, they had something called the Ultimate Fan Experience. I think it was the Ultimate Howard Experience, Stern Show Experience, Ultimate Fan Experience. I think was the name, but I got selected somehow. I guess because I had texted in about having some interest, and then it had been months, and they said, "Are you still interested in doing something involved in the show, like an event or something like that?" So I said, "Yeah, cool, I'll do it." And then they gave me the date that it was going to happen, and I took off work. So I went to the Sirius Studios in New York City. Um, it was cool. It was a cool experience. I mean, Howard wasn't there. That's kind of expected because since COVID, he's kind of just been in his basement doing the show there. He doesn't really go to the studio um, and do the show. So, but I got to meet a lot of the staffers. I didn't meet Robin. I didn't meet Howard. I didn't meet Fred, but I did meet Baba Booey. Um, so that was cool. He's the producer. Gary Delabate is the producer. Um, I got a tour of the studio. I met Sal. I met Richard. People are probably listening to the show like, who are those people? But if you know the Stern Show, you know some of those people. Um, but yeah, people were pretty nice. It was pretty cool. They also did a live show, um, and the wrap up show. It's like the show that's on after the Howard Stern show. It's called the wrap up show. It's hosted by Gary Delabate and John Hine. So I saw a live version of that. So that was cool. Bob Odenkirk was there that day he was on the show an hour earlier, but I didn't meet Bob Odenkirk, but he was there. Um, but it was cool just seeing like how, the radio station and Howard studio, like they had the scale built into the studio and I got to step on the scale, um, while I was in the studio. So that was kind of like a funny memory. But yeah, it was just, if you don't know the Stern show, it's not that exciting, but I thought it was pretty cool. They had food for us after the show recorded and after the tour. It was like barbecue chicken and mac and cheese and stuff. But I didn't really, I was talking to a couple of staff members and then I saw Gary was sitting a table away. So I'm thinking to myself, I got to take a chance. I got to say something to Gary. I got to ask about if there's potential jobs, on the show or at Sirius. So I kind of like interrupted his conversation. I kind of feel bad about it, but I moved my table away from where I was sitting and I sat next to him and I kind of interrupted his conversation. I started asking him about possible jobs and it was one of those things he really couldn't give me like a real good answer or any connection, but he kind of connected me with this other producer who I talked to, this younger guy, Mike, and I was able to get an email address and I sent my resume and stuff. And who knows? You know what I mean? I brought the business card for Zero Front and I gave the business card, but it's probably not going to turn into anything. But if I'm trying to get into radio, if I'm trying to get into broadcasting, um, unless somebody magically picks up this show, Um, it's one of those things I have, I got to keep trying. I got to, I could have just bullshitted and kept talking to staff members and, ask Gary some random questions and stuff. But I was like, you know what? Like, I got to take my shot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I asked them about jobs and stuff. And it's probably not going to lead anywhere, but I figure like, when am I going to be around? When am I going to be around, um, people on the Stern show? You know what I mean? Like, why shouldn't I, ask about jobs and try to take my shot? I know there have been the whole thing where, you heard about in the news where the people were saying the Howard Stern show was ending and stuff. And I never thought it was going to end. I thought like, okay, this is all like publicity and, his contract ends in December and who knows if he's going to renew or not. But it was a whole thing going over the news. Like there's the end of the Stern show and stuff. And, I don't know. I think Howard's going to probably re-sign, and whether it be he's going to be doing less shows per week or, less shows per year, but I have faith that the show is going to continue and stuff. But yeah, it was a cool day. It was a fun experience. Um, I kind of felt bad when I was eating my food. I left my food at the table when I got up to speak to Gary Delabate. And then I turned around, like I guess it was like 15 minutes later, and my food was gone because I guess they had to kind of speed it up because they had like autographs and stuff. I don't really, honestly, I don't really care about autographs. Like they're just people who work in a radio show. Getting an autograph is really not that important to me, but they had a whole thing set up where you can get an autograph from the staff members, and um, they gave me a poster with the autographs, but that's not really that important to me. But it was one of those things. I don't want them to think I didn't throw out my food. Um, because I guess they had to use those tables for the autograph session. So someone threw out my food, but I was gonna go back and throw out my food. I know I'm off on a tangent now. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, um, went to some concerts, did the Ultimate Howard Stern Show experience, um, and yeah, but yeah, I got a lot of different topics to talk about. Um, a lot of different things to talk about. There's been some crazy things going on in the world. Um, this conservative speaker, this conservative guy, Charlie Kirk, just got assassinated at his event, and it was all recorded on camera and stuff. And you saw him brutally get shot in the neck, and there was blood everywhere. And it's horrible. Even if you didn't agree with what he had to say, um, you know, killing the guy is not really a solution because now it's one of those things where he becomes a martyr. And it's like whack-a-mole. Other people are going to pop up in his place and continue spreading his message. So if you didn't believe in some of the things that he was saying or any of the things that he was saying, it's one of those things where killing him is not really a solution. Um, so that was horrible. Um, and I just don't like that people are celebrating his death and saying, oh, well, it's a good thing that he died. And, it's not a good thing because, whatever cause you believe in, if you believe against, believe in more liberal values and things that go against his message, other people are just going to continue his message and they're going to use his death as a springboard to continue the movement. More people are going to convert to the conservative side. Um, so I don't think that was a good thing that he was assassinated. And the people celebrating his death are definitely sick. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you're happy this guy died. You know what I mean? Like, um, because they're saying he was, he went to college campuses and he did this thing called Prove Me Wrong, and he would calmly debate people. And like, a lot of things that he says, you might think, okay, he hates gay people, or, he's against abortion, he's against transgender people. But even if you don't agree with any of those things, he was willing to calmly debate you and listen to what you had to say. There's a lot of videos of him spreading online, and like, he does speak logically, and he does. I don't think he's trying to like, um, you know, start a movement that are gonna like, take away people's rights and ruin people's lives and stuff. I just think he had his conservative values that he believed in, and he would, he would openly debate with people, and I thought he was, pretty impressive in terms of what he was talking about. Even if I didn't agree with everything that he was saying, like, because even the people who were talking about, well, do you hate gay people? And he would calmly say, so, well, I don't hate gay people. I know a lot of gay people and stuff. Um, so it's one of those things. I don't think he wanted to like exterminate gay people or, exterminate transgender people. But he would talk about how like abortion was murder. Um, and then people would debate him about it and stuff. So, he had a lot of conservative views, but he didn't really like dish you or like, say, oh, you're an idiot for believing that. He would calmly answer your questions and debate you. Um, and he was only 31 years old. He had a wife and kids, and that video is going to forever be in the internet of him getting assassinated. So I kind of just don't like that people are celebrating his death. And like I said, there's going to be more people that are going to pop up and take his place. And who knows, the guy who killed him, you know what I mean? Who knows what he was thinking? There's all conspiracies, like, you know what I mean? Like Charlie Kirk recently came out speaking against Israel, saying they let October 7th happen and this and that. And, he started to like do some anti-Israel views. So people have conspiracy theories that like Israel assassinated him. But those are conspiracies, and you know what I mean? There's no way to prove that stuff. Um, and they're saying that the guy who killed him, it's not really the same guy who killed him. But when you think about it, like, if they arrest this guy who shot him, um, you know, did somebody like pay him? Like say it's a conspiracy. Like, did somebody pay the guy to shoot him? You know what I mean? He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison, um, and everyone's going to know that he killed somebody, and they're going to be against him and stuff. And then his family, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you going down conspiracy rabbit holes. It's tough to really do that because you can't prove any of it. But anyway, then there was another murder. This girl on a train. Trying to see her, Iryna Zarutska. I think she's from Ukraine. She's a refugee from Ukraine, so she escaped Ukraine, and she's on a train, and some guy, DeCarlos Brown, sits behind her, and then he suddenly pulls out a pocket knife and stabs her in the neck, and that video is all online. So a couple of violent events. Um, and it shouldn't be like a race thing, but there's video of the guy after he stabbed her saying, I got that white girl, I got that white girl. So it was clearly a hate crime. But the problem is, even if it was a hate crime, um, there's plenty of, crazy people out there who are gonna, just kind of, it's gonna feed into their racist views, and they're gonna automatically think that all black people are like that and they're dangerous, and he killed a white girl, so we should be against black people, and that's not true at all. There's tons of hate crimes, and there's tons of people who do stuff, but hopefully he'll be charged accordingly. He was in jail 14 times. He got arrested at least 14 times. So he shouldn't have even been on the streets. And apparently he was arrested for like violent crimes. And, he might have like raped a child. Like he might have had some horrible, um, crimes. And this guy shouldn't have been walking the streets. And apparently there was no fare to get in the train that day. So he got in the train, and, he killed the girl. And, the video looks like there was no one around that did anything about it, but I think it happened so quickly. So I just don't like how social media, and like especially on X, which is formerly Twitter, how there's a lot of I think honestly over 60% of Twitter is just bots. Somebody told me it's Iranian and Russian bots. And there's a real agenda to divide this country and to start a civil war. So a lot of the comments that you see on Twitter and stuff, just be careful and be cognizant that it's all, it could be like, bot farms and people trying to divide our country, and people start trying to start a civil war and a world war. So, just because a black guy killed a white girl doesn't mean that all black people hate white people. And then you should be racist at all. Nobody should be racist. Everyone should be together. Um, we gotta be together as a country, not against each other. So it's horrible. It was the girl escaped Ukraine and she got stabbed, and it's a horrible video. So between the Charlie Kirk assassination video and that video, it's just two violent events. But then, a couple Democratic politicians got brutally murdered, and I think they killed their dog too. And that really wasn't publicized that much. Um, so, it's not one of those things you can't think, oh, it's all left-wing people killing right-wing people, and it's all, one side. There's all violence on all sides, and there's a bunch of crazy nut jobs and lunatics on both sides. Um, and you know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or you're in the middle, we can't be divided against each other. We gotta be together. We gotta help each other out. We gotta be, so it's just one of those things. So yeah, then the U.S. Open happened, and Alcaraz won the U.S. Open. Um, he's a hell of a player. But I saw Djokovic. Djokovic is 38. He's still a hell of a player. He didn't win this year, but I saw he could have had another U.S. Open title. But in 2020, during the U.S. Open, um, he hit the ball back to an umpire, and I guess he'd hit it too hard, or the umpire wasn't anticipating him hitting the ball back to her, and it hit her in the throat, and she was like on the ground, like gasping and like acting like she got shot. And Djokovic got suspended and he got eliminated and disqualified from the tournament. So I saw that. I was like, wow, like it's like wow. It's like one of those things where um, he could have had another major to his name, but he got I don't think he should have got disqualified because I don't think he purposely tried to hit the umpire, but it was one of those things where you start to think about conspiracies. It's like, why did this umpire exaggerate so much? Why did she act like, say even if she got hit in the throat, it was one of those things that was very suspicious. It's like, was there a conspiracy against Djokovic? But I don't know. So I saw that. I hadn't seen that before. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, got a couple of movie reviews, got a lot of different topics. Sorry if I'm all over the place. I'm just trying to get back in the groove of the show and do talk about some relevant topics and stuff. I saw a couple good movies. I saw this movie called The Long Walk. It's based on a Stephen King book. It's basically the premise is that there's a government thing where 50 people get chosen to go on a walk. And if you stop walking over 3 miles an hour, you get shot in the head. They kill you. I know it sounds kind of like, okay, well, if you stop walking, they shoot you. But if the winner gets a bunch of money or they get granted a big wish. So um, it was a pretty good movie. The dialogue was good. It was, it sounds simple. It's like, oh, they're just walking, and if they stop walking or if they slow down, they get shot. But they made it interesting and they kept it entertaining. Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, Cooper Hoffman, was in it. I thought he did a really good job. Mark Hamill, the guy who played Luke Skywalker, was in it. Thought he did a good job. David Johnson did a good job. So I give that movie a 7.7. Then I saw this other movie called The Toxic Avenger with Peter Dinklage. It's about a janitor at this company. He finds out he's going to die unless he gets a procedure done. And he ends up getting infected by this toxins at this big company he works for. And he turns into like a mutant superhero. It's funny. He uses like a mop as one of his like weapons. It was kind of like a B or C movie in terms of like it's a remake from the 80s, but I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. It's one of the better movies I saw this year. I thought Peter Dinklage did a good job. Kevin Bacon was in it. So I'll give that an 8.2. Then I saw a movie. I've seen a bunch of movies, but I'm just focused on the ones that are decent, I guess, instead of just bad mouthing certain movies. Caught Stealing with Austin Butler. Um, I thought that was good. Um, so I recommend those three movies: The Long Walk, Toxic Avenger, and Caught Stealing. Um, and then I recently moved back into the area where they show Yankees games because for the past couple of years I've been living in a Philly area, so I was just basically I couldn't watch Yankees games. I was only watching Phillies games, and I guess the Phillies are kind of like my National League team. I kind of root for them unless they're playing the Yankees. Um, so it's been cool watching Yankees games again, and hearing the announcers like Michael Kay, Paul O'Neill, Joe Girardi, David Cohn, because I used to watch literally every Yankee game. Um, so it's been nice watching the Yankees again. They're having a good season. I mean, Garrett Cole, their best pitcher, is hurt, but they have other guys who are filling in, doing a decent job. Um, like Carlos Rodon's been a decent pitcher. This young guy Corey Schlittler has been good. So I mean, I think their bullpen's kind of their weakness. I notice a lot of games their bullpen um, kind of blows the games, but so it's been nice watching Yankees games again. Um, Then there was a story about Kawhi Leonard, how he signed with the Clippers, but he got an endorsement deal from this company, and it was like basically they paid him like $28 million, um, and it didn't involve him doing any work or showing up. and they're trying to say that the owner Steve Ballmer like set the whole thing up because they couldn't pay it. They couldn't, instead of going through the salary cap, they circumvented the salary cap. And I think you might find this with a lot of players and a lot of teams. They sign, but then they promise them endorsement deals, which is fine. But the problem with this endorsement deal apparently was that it was a no-show, and the company wasn't really a real company. It was all like a shell, to kind of pay him more money. So that was kind of a big controversy. Um, but who knows? I mean, who knows what the deal is and how often that stuff goes on? But I don't know. The salary cap exists for a reason, but these guys have endorsement deals, like, I don't know. But going back to the U.S. Open, there was a guy at the U.S. Open. He was standing there getting autographs from the players, and this tennis player gave a kid his hat. But this older gentleman, he's a Polish CEO. He stole the hat from the kid, and they got it on camera of him stealing the hat. Um, and they, people, the internet found him and stuff, and it was just a scumbag move. He stole the hat from a kid, um, and at first he didn't even apologize. I don't know if it was a real quote or not, but he's like, "That's the way the world works and stuff." But how big a scumbag can you be stealing the hat from a kid? You know what I mean? So, um, but so that happened. That was a big story. The guy got flamed on the internet, and people, hopefully he's a CEO of a company, so who knows if he got fired or whatever. Um, but yeah, that was kind of messed up. Um, there was another situation kind of similar to that at a Phillies game. The Phillies are playing the Marlins. I believe the game was in Florida, and this lady tried to catch a home run ball, and this other guy left his seat and got the ball instead. It's not like he took the ball; she had the ball in her hands, and he took it from her. It was a free ball, and he got the ball and he gave it to his kid. And then this Karen, the nickname Karen for certain ladies who acted a certain way, is Karen. Um, she went up to the guy and his son, and she took the ball back. She like yelled at him and grabbed him and stuff, and she was really aggressive, and he gave her the ball. And the whole internet was like, "This lady is horrible," and I agree. She's obviously a horrible lady. Um, and but the ballpark, the team gave the player hit the home run. I believe the player was Harrison Bader. He gave the kid a signed bat. So that was cool. And they gave him like some gifts and stuff. And then some other guy reached out. And I think he gave the family a free RV. So the family was well taken care of. But it goes to the thing of like these adults doing horrible things, like taking things from kids. And some people are making the argument like, well, the guy who got the ball left his section. Well, if somebody hits a home run ball, it's fair game. You can leave your seat and chase the ball, I guess. You know what I mean? And it happens all the time. To take the ball from a kid is kind of absurd. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things, where some people are scumbags and some weird things happen. There was another story, this NBA player, I don't know which NBA player it is, but he had a dog sitter, and he left the dog with the dog sitter. He never picked up his dog, and he never paid the money to the dog sitter that he owed the dog sitter. So I'm really curious which player this is. He abandoned his dog. He didn't pay the dog sitter. Um, it just shows there's just a lot of scumbag people out there. Um, you know? So then there was a story, radioactive shrimp. Walmart apparently, at some of their stores, they I don't know, they didn't do it intentionally probably, but I don't know, I say probably, but most likely not intentionally, but there was radioactive shrimp. So hopefully the people who ate those radioactive shrimp are okay. Um, you got to have good quality control. You know what I mean? You can't be giving people food that's, going to kill them. Um, so, then I was in my car at a gas station the other day, and I had the window open and a bee flew inside the car. Um, a bee flew inside the car, and I didn't like panic, but I was like, I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, um, I got out of the car, I opened the window, I stepped out of the car. It was kind of, it's a tight space because I'm in New Jersey. So, we don't pump our own gas. Someone else pumps the gas. So it wasn't like I was outside my car. So I got outside the car, and then I opened the window and I opened the door. And then thankfully the bee flew out. So that was nice. I didn't get stung or anything like that. But, um, kind of interesting story. Um, then I was at the gym, and when I'm at the gym, I only do like one muscle per day, but I usually do I only rest between sets for about like 30 seconds. I don't rest that long. Um, and some younger guy came up to me and he wanted to work in with me, and I'm like, dude, I'm only gonna be doing this on this machine for like on this piece of equipment for like a couple minutes. Can you wait a couple minutes? And he's like, no, I really want to work in. So I was like, all right. But it's one of those things where we're at the gym and people ask you to work in. I mean, it's fine to work in if you're in a rush, but I'm not on my phone. I'm not wasting a lot of time. I'm being really efficient. Um, and I don't like confrontation. So once I said, like, what I mean? I'm only going to be on here for a couple minutes. Can you wait? And he said, no. I was like, all right, well, whatever. And the problem is sometimes they take off because I was happened to be doing back pull downs, and he took off the piece of equipment. Sometimes they change the weight, and sometimes it literally like it's fine for some people, but if I'm trying to get through my workout really quick, it's one of those things where if I was the person, I would go to another machine and just wait. Because usually if they ask, I usually say I'm going to be done in a couple minutes. I'll let you know when I'm done. So whatever, it was one of those things, but you know, um, and something happened at the Cowboys game. The guy in the Eagles, before the first game of the season, the Cowboys Eagles, Dak Prescott was kind of taunting this guy. Um, and apparently Dak Prescott spit on the ground, but it happened to be towards the Eagles defense, but he wasn't spitting on anybody. And this guy, Jalen Carter on the Eagles, is a really good player, but he lost his temper and he spit on Dak Prescott and they suspended him for the game. He wasn't suspended for the next game versus the Chiefs, but he he was fined a certain amount of money. He got to play, but it's one of those things you got to keep your temper. You know what I mean? You can't be spitting on people. You got to keep your temper. So, but yeah, I'm happy to be doing the show again. I got a lot of different topics to talk about. Sometimes it just feels like I'm rambling on about stuff, but that's what the show is. You know what I mean? It's like it's a lot of different topics, a lot of different things, opinions on things, and it's easier with a co-host having a conversation. But you know, I want to continue doing the show and stuff, and but what else? I was taking a walk around the neighborhood a couple weeks ago, and I guess I was looking at my phone, and someone had a sprinkler going on, toward the sidewalk and on their lawn, but it was more towards the sidewalk, toward the road, and all of a sudden I started getting wet. Basically walked into a sprinkler. It's one of those sprinklers that goes in different directions and stuff. Um, so that was kind of interesting. I got all wet, and I guess I got to keep my head up. I got to keep. I usually have my AirPods in. I'm listening to a podcast or music or something like that, and I walked into a sprinkler. So that was kind of a dumb little story. Um, what else? Got a lot of different topics to talk about. Yeah, There's been a lot of departures from Saturday Night Live. A lot of different cast members have either been asked to leave or they left the show. So it's going to be a lot of brand new cast members this season. So we'll see how that goes. And the ones that left, they were okay. I don't Obviously SNL is not what it was. You don't have the legendary members that they have, but it's still a good show, and I still like that there's a live show every Saturday. And they talk about current events and stuff. Um, so we'll see how the new cast members do. Um, then I'm doing fantasy football. My team's okay. We couldn't really agree on a time and a date, so we did a long draft, a slow draft, where you have a couple hours per pick and it goes on over the course of a couple days. But I had the eighth pick in the draft out of 12 teams. I drafted Malik Neighbors first, and then I drafted AJ Brown. Then I got Josh Allen as my quarterback. Um, um, then I got Chuba Hubbard, the running back. Probably my weakest part is my running backs. Um, but I think my team's decent. I won the first game by over 30 points, despite AJ Brown not having a good game. Um, but tonight actually, I'm actually let's see. I'm up by 32 points, and he has Justin Herbert left. It says he has a 14% chance to win. Um, so hopefully I can win this game. So that'd be nice. But yeah, it's one of those things. Fantasy football is what it is. You can't control the outcome. You can't control the players. So, but yeah, there's a couple other things that kind of annoy me. On Twitter specifically, Antonio Brown, the former receiver, almost all of his tweets are stolen. So someone else has a clever tweet and they tweet out something cool and something funny. And well, sometimes it's not something cool. Sometimes it's something like, completely ridiculous, but he steals it anyway. Um, I just don't like that when people steal tweets. It's like, come up with your own original material. Um, because the Discord group I'm in, the crypto group I'm in, someone posted, one of his tweets, and I was like, that tweet is stolen. You know what I mean? Like it's not his tweet. So try to find the original tweet and give credit to the original person who said it. Because Le'Veon Bell did that too. Like Le'Veon Bell tweeted something about Chick-fil-A. Um, and someone was like, "Oh my God, this is so funny." I'm like, "Well, actually, that's an old tweet, and that's an old thought. Like, he stole that from somebody else." Um, so I just think you have to be original. You got to do your own thing. You can't be stealing stuff from other people. And most of the people who reply, they get a lot of engagement. They're making money on these tweets, but they're stealing it from other people. So it's like, it's like do your own thing. It's like don't be ridiculous. Um, but yeah, then I just saw this thing where house centipedes apparently are like the Roombas. They're like the Roombas of pest control. Like if you ever see a centipede in your house, like I wouldn't kill it because they're killing other bugs. They're basically like that's why I say it's like a house Roomba. Um, it's like they're getting rid of other pests for you. Um, so you know, some bugs are good. Some bugs, get rid of other bugs for you. Like those. There's these big bugs with a lot of legs. I don't know if they're silverfish or whatever, but they kill other bugs and they don't bother people. So you know, even spiders kill other bugs too. Um, so it's one of those things where you don't have to kill every bug you see because there's a purpose to them. You know what I mean? Unless they're going to bite and poison you. And this is like a brown reclusive spider that can like kill you. Just let the bugs be. You know what I mean? You start to think it's well, what if they reproduce and there's tons of other bugs? I guess there's certain situations, but to get them outside. But the problem is a lot of spiders are raised inside, so once you put the spider outside, they can't really survive because they grew up inside. So because like Howard Stern was talking about this morning, he said there was a spider in a studio and he was all freaked out. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, that spider's, he's like, how are they, what's the spider eating? I don't have flies or other bugs, but I'm sure the spider was surviving somehow. Um, so it's one of those things you just don't have to kill every bug you see. And then I saw a cartoon where it's like this spider thinks that you were its friend the whole life, and then all of a sudden you're killing the spider. Um, you know, Not every bug is an enemy, and think about all God's creatures; they're all created. Like, what if like reincarnation exists? Like, what if we come back as bugs or something like that? Like, it's like who knows? I mean, I think we all have a soul, and our soul kind of travels with us when we die. Like, I don't think this is like the only life we live. I think like there's no way to prove it right now, but um, you know, we have a soul, and the soul travels from different realms to different realms, and you know, that's one of those things. It's like suicide. People commit suicide. You start to think it's like, well, are they just going through a better life, or like, what if God made a rule like if you end your own life, you're in purgatory or hell. So it's kind of scary. It's like because there's been people who have died and they said they've seen people stuck, like they've literally seen people stuck, and it's like they think it's people who committed suicide, like they're stuck. So I wouldn't recommend it. If you're having a tough time, call a suicide hotline, and um, you don't know, what God's plan is for you, and say you have a horrible like the people um the people in Palestine right now and the people in Ukraine, like they're going through war, and you start to think like, well, if they die, are they going to enter a better life? Like who knows? But I believe everyone has a soul, and I don't know. I definitely believe in a higher power or source. I believe in a God, or it could be multiple gods, but I believe we all have a purpose and there's a plan. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. What else? I saw a lady at Walmart. They have Krispy Kreme donuts there. The lady took a picture with Krispy Kreme. She had her friend. She picked up the box of Krispy Kreme donuts, and she had her friend take a picture of her with the Krispy Kreme donuts. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. But then she didn't buy the donuts. She put the box of donuts back. I'm like, wait, you took a picture with the Krispy Kreme donuts, and then you put the box. You don't have to buy the donuts. It's like there's some like random stuff, random things people do. It's like, and someone made a comment to me like, what if it was a scavenger hunt? I'm like, well, it was a scavenger hunt, but you shouldn't you still buy the donuts, you know? But and then there's a thing about AI talking about suicides and stuff. AI, apparently people are talking to AI a lot and they think AI is their friend. And they're asking AI if they should kill themselves, and the AI is giving them directions on how to kill themselves. So you got to be careful with AI. You might think AI is like talking to you and giving you advice and stuff, but AI is leading you down a dark path where it's like giving you advice how to commit suicide. It's probably not a good thing. And there's some lawsuits about people suing AI companies and stuff. So AI is kind of slowly taking over the world, and there's it does a lot of things. It can help you write things and do various things, and but you got to be careful with AI. You know what I mean? Because some of these movies predict, like that movie I, Robot from 2004 with Will Smith, predicted that robots are going to take over and get violent and stuff. You know what I mean? What if they start putting the AI consciousness in actual like robots and they start attacking people? Like it's crazy to think. Like we got to tread really carefully with AI. It's one of those things where, um, you know, we got to be very careful. It can help, but it also could take away a lot of jobs. You know, people's jobs can be eliminated because someone was saying like, "Oh, what if Walmart had greeters that were AI, like robots?" I'm like, "What about the people who are doing those jobs now? Like, what are they supposed to do?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know. They're supposed to get like another job." But like, what other jobs are going to be available if AI and robots keep taking all the jobs? So it's just one of those things. Then I saw Anthony Rizzo, the guy who played for the Cubs and the Yankees. Um, he he's a cancer survivor, and he was wearing a jersey that was signed by cancer patients that he visited throughout his career. And he was at a Cubs game recently. I think it was last Saturday. Um, and he was in the bleachers, and this guy in the Cubs, Moises Ballesteros, hit his first career home run, and the ball went right to Anthony Rizzo, and he almost caught it. He didn't catch it, but it went right to him. And it was just crazy. Like, what are the odds? This guy in the Cubs hits his first career home run. Anthony Rizzo played for the Cubs in the bleachers. The ball goes right to him. He's wearing a cancer patient um, jersey. So it's just interesting how some things happen. You know what I mean? Um, the odds of that happening are so rare. So, but yeah, I'm happy I'm doing the show again. Like I said, I'm going to try and do an episode like at least once a month, preferably at least a couple per month, and I just have a lot of different topics. I just saw one, Pat's and Chino's cheesesteak. The guy who works at Pat's Cheesesteaks, he's like, we don't chop up our cheesesteaks. That's bullshit, chopping up the cheesesteak. And this is the way we do it. He was kind of arrogant. But everyone knows that Pat's and Geno's in Philadelphia are tourist spots. Um, and, chopping up the cheese, he's like, chopping up the cheese. Like, this isn't baby food. You don't chop up the cheesesteak. But yeah, you got to chop up the cheesesteak and season it. He was basically just like, I guess that's the way they make the cheesesteaks there. But anybody who knows cheesesteaks, you got to chop it up. You got to season it. So I thought it's a funny video and stuff, but someone had said like that's one of the things about Pat's cheesesteaks. They're kind of arrogant. The customer service is kind of ridiculous there. I only went there once when I was at Villanova. When I started at Villanova in 2006, we went to Philadelphia and they got us cheesesteaks, and um, there's so many better cheesesteaks in Philadelphia um, than those places. They're kind of the tourist places, but the video is pretty funny. Um, but yeah, some other things happened. There was a school shooting in Minnesota. Some sick bastard shot up kids. Like, what kind of psycho would shoot kids? You know what I mean? Like, this world is just there's crazier stories every day. Um, it's one of those things where there's some sick individuals, and um, I think the government has to do a better job of tracking these people and anticipating and gun rights. Because people say like, well, if there was tighter gun control um, restrictions, these people wouldn't get guns. But I think people with 3D printing and stuff, like these people would probably figure out a way to get weapons anyway. But I do agree, like no one should own an assault rifle or assault weapons or machine guns. Um, if you want to have a gun in your house for protection from home invasions and stuff, that's fine. But um, there's a quote that says guns don't kill people, people do, and it's kind of true. You know what I mean? It's how do you restrict the people who are creating all this violence and stuff. Um, but yeah, so the show's back. Happy to be doing it again. Gonna have a lot of different topics to talk about. Um, and yeah, you know, tell your friends about the show. Tell them Zero Front's back. Season 3 has started. Follow on social media. The links are in the description of the podcast. Then I do reviews on TikTok. I'm trying to keep up with the food reviews. It's called Sean Review Stuff on TikTok. And I thank everyone for listening. And I'll be back probably in a couple weeks, maybe sooner. Who knows? But thanks for everyone continuing the show, and I'm glad to be back.